Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the Geeked Out Nation Comic Crossovers Marvel podcast. This is our first ever Marvel themed podcast. If you've been watching the site, we've done an X-Men Mutant Roundtable, which we will have another one of those in the next couple of weeks when our panelist returns from China. And we've done a DC one. We have another DC one coming up soon, but this is going to be our very first Marvel-centric panel. Um, I have two people with me. One of them you know very well from the Comic Crossovers podcast, and a new person, Michael. Welcome.
Hi.
Just joined the site. So everybody can get to know us a little bit more in our Marvel tastes. We're gonna go around and everybody's gonna talk about their three favorite running Marvel titles now. And Jadobi, you can't say Cyclops three times. Okay, so Michael, if you want to start.
Yeah, no problem. My name's Mike. I'm from the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and my three favorite Marvel titles right now are Guardians of the Galaxy, probably my number one. Huge Rocket Raccoon fan. I don't know, there's just something about that little guy I just love. The Hulk, the new Hulk series that has come out, I'm digging that one. And probably the original Sin stuff going on is kind of what's been captivating a lot of my time with comics here lately.
Okay, Jadobi, you want to go next?
I'd have to say X-Men. I think we all know the reason why for that one. Magneto, that one has been hard to miss. I mean, I don't care what anyone says about him being bald, about his powers being downgraded. The guy still kicks ass. And the other one would be Avengers Undercover. Whether you've read Arena or Undercover, it's a great book with younger heroes that takes the same kind of risks that you would have liked to see that you liked from Runaways or a lot of the books like that before. So it's worth picking up.
Okay. I guess my top three. One would be Captain Marvel. I love Captain Marvel. I love Carol. Always have, and now it's even more awesome that she's got a bigger role and everything, and she's just with Kelly Sue DeConnick writing her. There's a lot more humor to her. Um, I don't want to go all X-Men. So I guess my second pick will be Uncanny X-Men. Out of all the X-Men books, I think that one is just so spot on. I don't think it's story-wise. I think it has some weird issues here and there, but right now I think it's doing a great job at building up Cyclops and his group of mutants. And I think my third book is Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I really like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's such a fun space adventure, and I mean, Gamora and Angela are just like the funniest pair that you could imagine. I mean, Rocket Raccoon and Groot are obviously like the best pair in that group, but Gamora and Angela are just like the way they play off of each other, and the fact that they're both like pretty much the same person. It's just so much fun to see them interact with each other. I think like some people are a little critical of some of the some of the story aspects, but I just think it's such a fun book that you can't possibly hate on it.
It's
So
true.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a fun book. I have no complaints. um, all right, so our first discussion point is going to be Original Sin. This is an event that has taken up so far most of the Marvel universe, with much more to come. We're only at, as of this recording, we're only at issue 5. So we still have what, 3 more after this, along with all the tie-ins, and we're still wondering who killed the Watcher. So if anybody's not reading, we will be spoiling some plot points. It's for the discussion, so you might want to either pick them up, read it, and come back, or just deal with it. So, Original Sin, the Watcher has been murdered, and what has happened now is that some secrets are starting to come out about a lot of characters and what they've been up to, what they've done in secret, and I mean, without saying too much right up front, um, there's a lot of stuff that's changing the history of the Marvel universe for when it comes to certain characters, and a lot of things are starting to come together, especially when it comes to Tony Stark and his relationship with some characters, particularly Captain America and Hulk. For now, I mean, it's very possible he's done more than we know. So I just want to get you guys going. So I mean, how are you feeling about Original Sin? What is standing out the most to you? What plot point is something that you just it's either so great that you just can't wait to get more of it, or it's just so bad that you wish it was being undone?
The one thing I like most about it is that it's an actual murder mystery. They could easily throw things here and there to shock us, but just the fact that there's a genuine mystery to this is the reason why you want to read this. I mean, we still don't know who killed the Watcher. We don't know what anyone's intention is. We don't know their secrets. We don't know their truths. There's just so much in between that you can't tell who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Who we thought was the bad guy at first, now you're shaky on, and now you're just kind of questioning everything, and putting the pieces together is the fun part. But aside from that, what I also liked is a lot of the team ups, especially when it comes to those groups like Black Panther, Emma Frost, and Scott Lang. That was an interesting group. Having Doctor Strange and Punisher together, that was a good group. And then of course having them all intersect, and then having Punisher and Rocket Raccoon interact for the first time. That's the kind of stuff you like to see from this kind of event.
Yeah, I'd have to say that this is probably one of the better Marvel events I've read in some time.
Definitely.
It's got a lot of, like Jadobi was saying, the murder mystery feel to it. It's like a real whodunit type of thing, it keeps you guessing. So, it's really interesting. And the whole idea of their secrets being exposed and kind of getting to see the effect of keeping those secrets and how that's going to affect their relationships with other characters and how it's going to affect where stories go in the future. It's been really, really interesting. I'd have to say that the only thing that I haven't been feeling as far as a plot point would be the whole Young Avengers thing with the side books. I was like, I read the first issue of that, and I was like, this is pretty terrible. Yeah, I didn't mind the whole Deathlock story. That was kind of cool, but
Yeah, it was cool.
yeah,
like
but the rest of it though, I was like,
the Black Knight one was also that one has me interested, but the Young Avengers one, I don't know.
I also really like the team ups that we're getting out of this, especially Punisher and Doctor Strange. And I think coming off of the New Avengers annual, Doctor Strange sort of needs to have his own book now. I mean, he's just taken. I mean, this is not his story, but what he's done in this story has made him just such an interesting character again. I mean, I don't know. Somewhere in the last like 10, 15 years, he kind of just wasn't as important, and I feel like after maybe once this whole thing with the incursions and the Illuminati became a bigger plot, that he became much more significant in the Marvel Universe, and him and Punisher together is just like the funniest thing ever because they're so different and they handle things in such a different way. And my only thing that I'm really not crazy about is I've never been a huge Punisher fan, and he's kind of annoying me a little bit. That he's a little, like, I know this is who he is, but this is part of why I've never really been a huge fan of his. He doesn't really think a lot, and I do like the smarter heroes. I do like someone like Doctor Strange who has a lot of thought behind what he's doing, and it's not just let me go in here with all these guns and just kill everyone and ask questions later. So, I mean, that's just, like, my one little, like, issue with it, but I also don't like the Young Avengers stuff. I've never been a big Young Avengers fan. I didn't even finish reading the last volume that was done. I've just never been big on the teenage characters. But Original Sins with them, it's just not doing anything for me, and I don't know where that's headed. I feel like the Avengers Undercover story, which is not tied in, is so much more compelling than what these characters are doing within Original Sin. Um, but I think one big thing that we should really think about is Nick Fury and how much of a part he's taken in this after original Nick Fury, after like kind of just not being important for a few years. I don't know how you guys are feeling about that. I mean, I think that's a huge thing, and without spoiling Original Sin number 5, you know, the way Original Sin 4 ended, you know, 5 sets up a lot of things involving him that start to make you wonder some things. But Nick Fury, original Nick Fury, has always been he's always been interesting to me. I don't know how you guys feel about him, but I've always liked Nick Fury, and seeing him take this kind of a role in this event, it just feels right.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see him kind of, you know, as the issues have progressed, take center stage almost. Like it's about the Watcher's death, but it seems to be, you know, shifting focus to, yeah, that's important because of whatever, you know, role he's going to play in the rest of the series. But him being in the middle like that, yeah, he hasn't had any play in a long, long time. I mean, obviously, I think some of that has to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, having the new, I guess, Nick Fury there, and them trying to keep, you know, some cohesion, I think, with that. But it is cool to see him kind of making a comeback a little bit and seeing where they're going to take that and exploring his character a little more in some of his you know, maybe even some of his backstory about what things are going on there. But yeah, that has me really interested, especially the way issue 4 ended, where, you know, all these years you've seen Nick Fury as, you know, kind of a middle-aged guy, really, you know, and then all of a sudden the end of issue 4, you know, he looks like he's walking death. So
Yeah. And it's fortunate that Jason Aaron has. I mean, this is I get why decisions were made with Nick Fury, because they do want to bring in more readers and this and that and movie tie-ins, but I think he got a raw deal by basically being kicked out for the more Samuel L. Jackson looking Nick Fury, and that whole story never felt right. Not really hating on his character, but I feel like the reason behind him getting in there and the way it went down, just it didn't feel right to me. So I am happy that Jason Aaron has decided to pick up something with the real Nick Fury, and you know, I mean that's just me. I have a problem overall with the comics trying to force the movie stuff into it too much. But it's like Original Sin, it feels like it's taking it back to the core Marvel characters, because you have characters that have been around a long time involved. You have Moon Knight involved. Moon Knight is an old character. You have Black Panther involved. You have Captain America involved in the core Original Sin series, and I like that because it just feels like it's a throwback. Even with the murder mystery, it feels like a throwback to a different time period.
Yeah, and what I like about this whole thing with Nick Fury is that this is pretty much, I feel this is pretty much the role he was always going to have in the future. It's something I would have always questioned, because I can't speak of issue number 5, but like that one other person, for those who have read it, for that one other person he did meet in issue number 5, there's at least one other person who also has taken on a similar role. Like, can I say who the other person is?
If it spoils 5, no.
I don't think it was spoil 5, but there was what was his name? Franklin? No. John. Whoever Mr. Fantastic's father is. You know the type of role he took when everyone supposedly thought he died and he wasn't really dead, and he had his own little mini series where he was off doing his own thing, saving the galaxy or universe or whatever it was. That's the kind of thing that I would have always imagined for Nick Fury that's the kind of thing that's the kind of role you would expect from Nick Fury. Something greater after he leaves. So I think that this was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and going off of the roles people are having now, let's get into Tony Stark. Tony Stark is the catalyst for a lot of things that are going on. It turned it in a original Sin 3.1. It turns out that the gamma bomb that caused Bruce Banner to turn into the Hulk was tampered with by none other than Tony Stark, which basically is the Marvel Universe saying Tony Stark is responsible for the Hulk. It also stands that Tony Stark is also part of Captain America not knowing about the Illuminati. And now he knows about this. Tony Stark also was a huge part of Civil War. Tony Stark in the last 10 years has taken a major role in a lot of events that have happened in the Marvel Universe. And I want to get you guys' views on this because I have some strong opinions about Tony Stark. And I just want to hear what you guys have to say about his role in the Marvel Universe now. Feel free to spoil whatever you need to. It's an important conversation to have.
I think it's definitely true. I mean, he's the reason for the Phoenix as well.
Yeah.
He's the reason for a lot of things. When you even like when it even comes to the world of magic, he's to blame for a lot of the progression that goes on when people want to mix the two, and usually that has some sort of dangerous outcome. But I kind of like it because we both read Captain Midnight, and
Yeah.
and you see how a lot of the stuff now is because of things he's set in motion or done in the past. So it kind of feels like they're doing something similar with Tony, and it makes sense.
I think it's kind of funny too. He was also responsible for Planet Hulk and
Yeah.
yeah, World War Hulk too. So it's like, he's just about every major event. Somehow Tony Stark is somewhere in there as the main catalyst for it. And I don't know. As I've read and progressed through comics, I've grown to just really not like him. I kind of think he's a big douche. And so it's like, and then when you see the movie version, Robert Downey Jr., it's completely different.
Yeah.
He's a guy you can't help but like him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, I don't know, it's kind of strange to see that difference between the two. But I don't really like him. I think that when you put him as a catalyst for all these major events, almost all these events, start with something bad happening. So you're in essence like making Tony Stark just this big jerk who like does nothing to screw everything up. So at the same time, it gets harder and harder to like him because you're like, gosh, Tony, how could you be this stupid? How could you trust the government to do this with the hero registration thing and the whole Civil War deal? How could you do that? You should know better. Of all people who should not trust the government, you do, and it's just, I don't know. I've grown to really dislike him in the comics and love him in the movies. So I don't know, it's kind of a strange dichotomy there for me.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark is the most likable guy in the entire Marvel movie universe. But if you read him in the comics in the last forever basically, he's not a good guy. He's had alcohol issues where he's done some really awful things. He's been responsible for all of these events getting started. I just wonder at what point does a writer in the Marvel Universe say, and maybe it's going to be Jason Aaron with Original Sin, at what point does a big Marvel writer say, how is this guy on the Avengers anymore? How is he even considered a hero? How is he part of this? And it's got to the point where you can say, a guy makes a couple of mistakes, okay. But a guy who's consistently responsible for all these awful things and destroying so many people's lives, because to be honest, Bruce Banner does not want to be the Hulk. This is not a blessing to him. This is a problem. And it has been a problem, and it has destroyed his his personal life in many different ways. So at what point does a writer say, okay, enough? This guy is out of the Avengers. He is not a nice guy. He's a troublemaker. He sacrifices everyone else for the sake of science, which is pretty much what he did in Avengers versus X-Men. He didn't think anything through and just went and did what he wanted, and it created all the issues the X-Men now have. And with Original Sin, there's no way he walks out of this without losing the trust of Captain America.
It's really.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's really strange too. Like, at one point, can you stop considering him a hero? Because all he's doing is cleaning up his own messes.
Yeah.
He's making messes and then contributing to the cleanup after the damage is done. So is that really heroic if you're just kind of cleaning up the mess you made in the first place? That's kind of the thing that strikes me a lot as I had read through a lot of the events and stuff. It's like, when is this guy going to be called out and held accountable for what he's done? And people stop looking at him as a hero. And it seems like he himself thinks that he's a hero and that he always does the right thing or tries to do the right thing. He's always justified to himself. So I don't know. It's kind of one of those things for me. Like, wow, it's not being heroic if you cause the trouble and then you fix it. That's just called responsibility.
And here's the odd thing about Tony Stark too. The Iron Man series does not sell well. His solo series is not popular. It's not something you see sites review regularly. It's not something you see people talking about on social media. It's just not. So the problem becomes is, does he even, when he eventually gets a new #1? Because after Original Sin, I'm sure a lot of things are going to be given a new starting point. When this happens to him, who writes this series and what do they do with it? Because I could tell you now, like, I just do not like Tony Stark anymore. I'm not interested in reading his supposed heroic adventures. He doesn't have any. He doesn't have any. So what does a writer do at this point with Tony Stark? How does he make this right? Does he help clean up whatever he does now and stay with the Avengers like we've seen in the last few years? Or does someone say, look, does Jason Aaron say, look, this is it. Tony Stark's out. His series is now about him trying to rebuild his life, rebuild his company, rebuild everything. Because he's not likable. And I wonder if part of why his book doesn't sell is because people who have seen the movies decide, hey, I'm going to check out Iron Man, read it, and totally get turned off by him. So my question now is, does Tony Stark need to be reinvented to fit the movies, or does he stay as this really bad person and just work on those problems?
I think a road to redemption story is definitely going to be necessary at some point if you want the book to sell and bring people in. Mm-hmm. Because, in my opinion, I think you brought up a really good point with people seeing the movies and then new readers reading the comic and like, wow, these are not at all the same kind of characters, same kind of people.
Not at
I think
all.
if you want to connect those, redemption story is absolutely necessary. I think it would probably be in their best interest if they want to sell books to go that route.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the problem comes from them. A lot of the problem comes from them looking towards progression. Like when people liked Iron Man, they liked him when he was back to basics, had a suit for every occasion. Had his normal set of villains that wanted to kill him because he ruined their lives, and yet all we see now is the next big suit, Tony off into space, Tony trying to create the city of the future, and it's like, I don't know. All of it is going to end bad, and it always does.
I mean, Scarlet Witch was persona non grata in the Marvel Universe after House of M. No one wanted to touch her, and she just was not no one liked her. There was no way it seemed like there was no way you could bring her back. And what they've done with the Children's Crusade, which was a miniseries that officially brought her back, and her role in Uncanny Avengers, they've tried to bring her back into the fold as this hero. And I don't know, do you guys feel like they've done an adequate job, and would you want to see something similar done with Tony Stark?
I definitely think that something like that would probably be good for Tony Stark. It'd be something I'd be interested in seeing. Just the whole idea of kind of giving him a character overhaul, but taking the time to do it right, not rushing it just so that you could automatically make him the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Show him struggle with, getting rid of these character defects, and then along the way, as he gets better, discovering new ones, but perhaps on a slightly smaller scale than, ruining Bruce Banner's life or, causing widespread destruction of some sort, So I would like to see that. But I wanted to really take their time and develop it, because I think with Tony Stark being so complex and complicated, that there's a lot of room for growth and exploration of things that they've never really explored with him. It's kind of like it kind of reminds me of Batman in a way. Like Batman gets pigeonholed into being the Dark Knight, and that's kind of what people know him as. They don't see all the complicated layers of personality there. And I think with Tony Stark, we've just seen he's an idiot. He's an intelligent idiot. He's absolute genius, but a moron with common sense. So I would kind of like to see peel back some of those layers and go that direction.
Yeah, I think he gets the same kind of character, a little bit of the same characterization that Reed Richards gets. Because Reed Richards, sorry, there's bad thunderstorm outside. I think Reed Richards gets like the same kind of treatment, where I think they all have a reason to what they do, but we don't ever get into that. We just see them do the stupid thing. And I think if you see a character do something stupid, but you can understand the reasoning for it, you don't dislike them as much. And I think that's important for a writer to do, even with a superhero. I mean, I know superheroes are, they're, punch 'em, fight 'em type of thing, but they do need some more character. They do need that deeper characterization for us to identify with them and even like them. Because I find it hard for anyone to say that they like Tony Stark.
And he definitely needs a new supporting cast, one that can actually bounce off of his humor and sarcasm. I don't know, but anyway, because I normally prefer him when he's around either Pepper or Rhodey, but those two are off doing their own thing these days. They don't really have time for him, so. Yeah. He needs someone that can be established and that we can connect with when we can't connect with him.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Do you guys even think? I mean, at this point, with what he's already done in Original Sin, is there anywhere lower for him to go?
Nope.
I think killing the Watcher would be.
I wouldn't think so, but people are really creative, so I don't know.
He pretty much took on all the Avengers by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil that moment. I don't know if you've reached that point in Avengers yet, where Steve confronts him for it, but it was a pretty big moment.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess what we can do is we can move into I want to talk about and Michael had suggested this, the upcoming Time Runs Out Avengers thing, which will be Jonathan Hickman's farewell to the Avengers books. Everything he's been working on is building up to this, and there's going to be a time skip. And there's a lot of talk that this is going to be a reboot of the Marvel Universe, because it's already been teased that Incursions will be a part of this storyline. That was started way back when he took over. That was a big part of how Infinity got started. A lot of this all came together, and it seems that it's all going to come to a head now, starting in the fall, I believe it is, right after Original Sin ends. And I don't know. Marvel is not going to say that they are rebooting the entire universe. But so my question to you guys is, do you think that that isn't even a plausible thing at this point, that they would actually reboot the entire Marvel universe? And if they do, doesn't that make the whole idea of doing Original Sin kind of pointless?
I mean, not only does it make the whole original Sin event pointless, it basically makes all of Marvel now pointless, which would actually upset me. I mean, there's so much that's happened because of the different risks that they've taken with all these characters, that you go back to square one, and you're kind of you wouldn't be reading those characters for the same reason anymore. So I really hope that I don't believe that there will be a reboot, but I'm also hoping there won't be.
Yeah, I'm really hoping not. I really like a lot of the stuff that's going on, and especially with like Original Sin, I feel like they're kind of starting to get back on track with big events and things, and it's like you start to get this momentum. I feel like that would kind of shoot it down, and especially when you look back at like Superior Spider-Man, for example, which I actually really liked.
Me too.
Yeah, I want to see Peter Parker still struggle with fixing everything, and I don't want there just to be some massive, draw away from what they're doing there. So I don't know. I like the direction they're taking things now. I think it's good, and I really don't want to see them start from scratch or reboot stuff. I mean, DC does that enough. We don't need every company under the sun just doing this reboot every 2 and 3 years. It kind of gets old. So I just really hope they continue with what they're doing.
I think I don't think they're gonna go to a full-on reboot, but I could potentially see them taking the incursions and rebooting certain aspects of the timeline just to make it more streamlined, because there's a lot of people have been nitpicking a lot at some of the things that are happening in the Marvel timeline, especially when it comes to the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. There's just some discrepancies in what took place when and how this even makes sense in this kind of a timeline. And I could see them potentially doing away with certain problems with the timeline and rebooting certain aspects, but I don't see them actually doing a full-on reboot, mostly because they have no build-up to it. At least with when DC did it, they were doing Flashpoint. They had the whole thing planned out, and they made sure that they weren't doing any huge major thing immediately before it, so it wouldn't be, okay, now we're just rebooting it in the middle of nowhere. If Marvel did that right now, that's how it would feel, and I think that would get a huge backlash. I think it would get more of a backlash than when DC did it, because it doesn't feel prepared. I'm not against retcons and things like this, because I do think it helps clean things up a little bit nicer, and it lets new readers jump into things, which is why I don't mind all new Marvel now, by putting new #1s on stuff. Numbering is not a big deal to me. It's just as long as the story still adds up with what's going on, I'm okay with it, because I do appreciate publishers taking the time to notice that, yes, other people want to read comics. We need to make it so they can jump right in. And I work at a comic shop, and I've seen a lot more people picking up some of the Marvel titles, like X-Men for one is a huge seller now, because after Avengers vs. X-Men, that was a good place to jump on. When they did the All New Marvel Now and put the first trade in the digital code, that was a big seller, and I think that that's where they should stick. If they're going to reboot certain parts of things, okay, I wouldn't be too angry with that, because I do think there are some weird problems with some characters. I think that could potentially be a way that they fix Iron Man. I don't know if they really want to do that, but I could see that being a possibility. But I'm also intrigued by the fact that this is Jonathan Hickman's last go on the Avengers. I'm wondering where he's going to land next, because Marvel clearly loves working with him. And Avengers and New Avengers, despite what some people dislike, when he finishes this, those are going to be 2 huge volumes of Avengers and New Avengers. That's going to be an excellent read. I mean, he's going to have 2 events thrown in there. Everything ties together. He did this with Fantastic Four as well. And that got me back into that until recently. I can't. The new volume is just not doing it for me. But his work on Fantastic Four was very good. He's into the long storytelling. It's not 5 issues in an arc. It's like when he starts on a series, 30 issues from now, it all means something. So I'm wondering if, like, just for fan service, like, where would you guys want to see Jonathan Hickman end up? And I'm gonna say now the X-Men is out because I think Bendis is that is his for the foreseeable future. That looks like that is totally his for now. I mean, I don't know if Hickman's gonna stay with Marvel, but if he does, is there a certain person or persons you'd like to see him jump with?
I don't know. I think it might be interesting because he seems to really have a good grasp of sci-fi stuff. It might be interesting to see him do some more of the cosmic characters and maybe even a run on Guardians of the Galaxy or something. That might be interesting to see how he would tell a story there. And like you said, since he takes such a long time to tell a story, then there's proper setup and a lot of depth to the story. So I think that might draw in some people to reading Guardians that maybe didn't like some of the story elements, like what you'd mentioned earlier. Because I know some people have said that seen some reviews that kind of knocked some of the issues for weaker story points and whatever. That might be an interesting way to beef up their kind of mythology and storytelling and see if that sticks. I don't know, it'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm. It would be. I also agree with going to the cosmic Marvel side. I mean, there's a lot going on over there right now. You have the Guardians, you have Captain Marvel, you have Venom. There's a lot of stuff, and then you also have Cyclops. There's a lot of things going on out there, and they all can connect in a way. They all can connect in the same capacity that Avengers and New Avengers did, and he could probably pull that off.
I think Cosmic would be really good for him. I think a lot of people's criticism of Guardians of the Galaxy is that it's just a little too fun for them, and Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't always like this. But I don't know if I think with the movie coming out, I think they might want to keep it a little bit more lighthearted. There's been so much talk about Doctor Strange getting a book. I actually could see him taking Doctor Strange and doing a series with Doctor Strange after this 8 months jump thing that's going to happen in the fall. Because I don't see him leaving Marvel. I don't think he's Marvel exclusive because he does have creator-owned things elsewhere. I don't think he only works with them, but I could see him taking just an individual character and doing something with Doctor Strange, or maybe he'll be the person to take over Iron Man. In a perfect world, I'd actually really like to see him write the X-Men. That would be my perfect scenario for Jonathan Hickman, because I think the X-Men work better when there's a bigger thing going on that they're all leading up to. So I think some of the best X-Men stories have come when you have a writer that's taking it on for a long time. I mean, if you look at everything Chris Claremont did, it all meant something. It all tied in together. He created all these different characters and legendary storylines. And I personally think Jonathan Hickman's New Avengers run is going to go down as one of the best Avengers runs ever. I mean, Infinity, I wasn't a big fan of Infinity, but it has, that fan base, and everything he's done is just so, it's deeper than you see a lot of superhero stories take. It's deeper than what you see other writers do with superheroes. So I'd like to see him take over something like Doctor Strange and do something really different. Because I feel like he would do a really good job. I mean, I read East of West, so I feel like Doctor Strange, with all the mysticism and how out there that can be, I think that would work with him. And it would be a serious book. I mean, it would not be funny. That's my only thing with whoever if they do a Doctor Strange book, whoever takes that over. I don't want it to be campy. I don't want it to be funny. I feel like Doctor Strange deserves a more mature kind of book.
Get to the dark and gritty.
Yeah. I mean, that's my hope with this movie that they're supposedly making. I don't want it to be funny. I'll take the Guardians being funny. I'll take the Avengers having some moments, but Doctor Strange could potentially be very serious. I mean, he doesn't deal with very pleasant things. And he's kind of, he works alone. He's kind of the guy, the go-to guy for some of this really dark stuff. So it's I don't really think he should be all that funny. Oh no, go ahead.
Not to mention in recent times he's been spending a lot of time sacrificing things here and there, all for the sake of power. So you definitely want to see how that could all go wrong for him, because at the same time where we say writers want to increase his importance, he wants to make himself important.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to see what he'll lose along the way.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move into, I guess this would be our final talking point, and I want to talk a little about the Guardians of the Galaxy. We're about a month away from the movie. The series is going strong. That's that storyline with Captain Marvel being a part of whatever, their whole thing, and Angela will obviously be leaving. It looks like she will be leaving that book soon because of everything that's going to be happening with her and Thor and Loki and Original Sin. Isn't it kind of surreal to see like this? Like, this is a thing. This is a thing you can buy now and not feel weird about it.
Yeah, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, can you believe that Marvel had the guts to put out a movie with a talking raccoon? and it's actually getting like serious consideration.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel ashamed now if I walk down the street in a Rocket Raccoon shirt. Like, people know,
It's like, if you wear a Captain America shirt before the movies came out, people knew who that was. It's like you wear Superman, you wear Batman, people knew who that is. You walk around with a tree on your shirt. People are like, what's going on? Are you like an environmentalist now? No, it's Groot. He's awesome. And it's just such a crazy feeling to know that like Guardians of the Galaxy is now a thing that people are going to go pay money to see, and it's already being like early talk is that it's very Star Wars like, and I'm just like, this is really happening. Guardians of the Galaxy is getting compared to Star Wars.
And I like how the transition between comics and movies remains the same in the sense that they're looking for legitimacy, because even when they started rising to popularity on the comics side, they still had fun with the characters joking about how they would jump into action and say, "We're the Guardians of the Galaxy," and everyone's just like, "Who?" And then you see in the movie, and they get the same reaction, and people are like, "Who?" So that was a great move.
I like the route the story, at least in the comics, is taking with Peter and his dad. That it's becoming, this isn't like a thorn in their side anymore. This is like a major problem that they now have to deal with. That I feel like they've been avoiding dealing with for a while, and for at least this run, they've avoided it, and now they're separated. This is it for them. Like, they have to handle this whole situation with Peter's dad now, because their livelihood as a team is at stake. They're never going to be able to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is protecting the galaxy in their own special way. But they do protect the galaxy. I don't know. I like how self-contained this story arc is. It's just them. Other people are joining into their story. Venom's coming in with them. Captain Marvel's coming in with them. They're not joining anyone else. I think that's when they're at their best, when they're really just free to do their own thing and be their own team. And I think that's what the movie looks like it's going to do a lot of. I know there's talk that that they are connected. And I think everyone's connected to the Marvel movie universe. It's just, I don't see them being like a huge part of Avengers 3. I see them just doing their thing. And I think that this movie succeeds. This is going to be the beginning of cosmic Marvel movies, which is really exciting.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I always assumed that if they had a part in the Avengers movie, whatever they're doing out there will be them helping instead of them actually coming to help.
Hmm. Yeah, and I just like with them being a part of the Marvel movie universe, it is a huge risk to do this movie. I mean, and not even just money wise, but if this movie is a flop, if this doesn't get the reception that it should get, Thanos is kind of going to be it for Cosmic. He's going to be their big bad guy, and that's about it. He's going to be the Avengers' big bad guy, and that's about it. I don't, we're never going to see like a trilogy of Guardians of the Galaxy movies, or see Skrulls, or any of that. It's just not going to happen if this movie doesn't take off. And I just think it's just a cool feeling to know that they are getting so much buzz, and that their comic is selling so well, and that people actually care about a raccoon that shoots people.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to see them expanding out like that, and it's definitely a huge risk because most people don't know who they are,
Hmm.
and to see them warming up to characters from Marvel that they have no idea about. Like even though back when Marvel Universe started, cinematic wise, people didn't really know Iron Man all that well, but
Hmm.
I think a majority, especially of comic people, obviously knew him, comic book readers, but now, we've come to know all these characters, and they're starting to open the door to that other side. And I just feel like it's going to kind of be that Iron Man thing all over again. That
Hmm.
the people are going to see these characters, and they're going to, at first it seems silly, to have a tree and a talking raccoon that shoots people, but once you see his character and kind of get to know him, you can't help but like him. He's definitely going to
Yeah,
be,
you
I think,
can't.
yeah, I think he's going to be the kind of the breakout. And I was really nervous about seeing Rocket on screen and having Bradley Cooper do the voice. I was like super nervous about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. The voice. I was sold on Vin Diesel only because I heard his voice in my head, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's Groot. That deep monotone thing. That's Groot. But Bradley Cooper, it didn't seem like it fit, only because I always imagined Rocket Raccoon with a Cockney accent. I don't know why. I just did. And I was worried. I was like, Bradley Cooper, he's too pretty. I don't see how he can actually be Rocket Raccoon. But from what we've seen, it's not bad. I think he looks cool too. Him and Groot look like they're actually there, that they are real things, and that was something that scared me. Seeing the previews the first time, I was like, okay, if they don't look right, if they don't look like they're actually sitting next to Drax, then it doesn't work. But they do, and I think I'm very excited for this movie. That's why I had to bring it up. I just think it's such a potentially special movie, and it's exciting. I don't know, GW, do you have any final thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, I also really like their approach to Drax, especially the whole insane thing. I mean, it was funny seeing that one clip where they were talking about I think something going over Drax's head. Then he was like, nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I'll catch it or something like that. I think they were talking about jokes, and he's thinking it's something real going over his head.
Yeah. So I guess so we'll wrap up with do either of you have any like final thoughts on anything going on in the Marvel universe? It could really be anything.
I'm just excited to see what else is going to go down with the original Sin thing. What other kind of revelations are going to come out here in the next few weeks with the tie-ins, as well as the main arc there. I'm just really excited to see what they're going to do with Nick Fury. I just think that direction that they're taking this is really cool. So I'm looking forward to that.
Mhm. Me personally, I'm just while I am looking forward to the Storm series upcoming, I'm just hoping that the next solo series doesn't have can be someone a little less expected, not an X-Men or mutants. Um, I mean, I like Storm. I like Magneto. I like Cyclops. but just want something a little more out of left field.
Yeah, I mean, my last thing, I guess, would be that I'm really interested to see how Ms. Marvel unfolds. I think she's such a great new compelling character, and I'm very excited to see now that we've gotten past her introduction and what her powers are and things like that. I'm really excited to see where she eventually fits into the bigger Marvel universe. I'm excited to see who she teams up with. If she ever joins like a Young Avengers type of team, where all of that goes, whether or not she's going to interact with any of the other Inhumans, it's going to be an interesting ride with her. So yeah, I'm excited about Ms. Marvel. I guess that wraps everything up. We'll be back hopefully in 2 weeks with more. We might time it to be after the next issue of Original Sin, number 6, so we can really get into 5 and 6 together. 5 had some interesting bits of Nick Fury stuff, and we'll definitely get into that on the next podcast, along with everything else. And we'll also be filming the comic crossovers on Thursday, and then we'll also be filming our second episode of the DC podcast. So I don't know if you guys want to plug yourselves a little bit, where people can find you, what you're going to be reviewing this week or so. You can go for it, Jadobi.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at NewGenXmen. Find all my latest reviews on Foundation. Right now there is Ghosts number 6. There's Injustice number 13. If you're a fan of Harley, go read it or you'll be missing out. There is hold on a second. Hold on. There is Knuckleheads number 7, a very funny independent comic, and Angel and Faith season 10 number 4. And I should have a Batwing number 33 review up by the end of today.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Metacomics with an X at the end there. I'm going to be reviewing issue number 3 of Southern Bastards, which is actually a really, really good comic. If you're not checking that out, you really should. It's very dramatic. And I'm also going to be doing Savage Wolverine. So that's the 2 that I got coming out this week, and I should have those up probably by the end of the day tomorrow.
Awesome. So you can follow me at Kamato Jess on Twitter. I have a review up on the website now for an independent comic book called Enormous. If you like Godzilla, if you like sci-fi, this is something you absolutely need to pick up. I also have a Wonder Woman feature going up on the site in lieu of the announcements that had came out a couple days ago about the creative team switch and the controversy that surrounded some of the statements that were made. And I will also have reviews up for Earth 2 and Madame Frankenstein 3 within the next couple of days. Might do another independent graphic novel if I have the time, but have to finish the other 2 first. So yeah, and as always, check out the website www.geekdownnation.com. We already have a bunch of reviews up on the site, along with a perfect 10 for Rocket Raccoon number 1. So you're gonna want to check that one out. See why the first issue got a perfect score. We'll have way more reviews coming up Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday. So always check that out. And make sure if you are watching this on YouTube, you can also download this on iTunes. You can check it out on the website directly, and you can share it easily. We use Podbean as well, and on Podbean you can check out the comic crossovers, the Mutant Roundtable, and the first episodes of DC Podcast, all on there in just audio. So, comment away, let us know what you think. If you have an awesome name for the podcast, let us know. Because we do need a cool new name for the Marvel podcast. And that's us signing off. All right, have a good one.
Later.